Hello, and welcome to the 55th episode of Scripture in a Year, hosted by Saints Peter and Paul Orthodox Church in the Albanian Archdiocese of the OCA. Today's reading is Judges, chapters 5 to 8. Then Deborah and Barak, the son of Abinoam, sang on that day, saying, A revelation was made known in Israel to the people who were willing, bless the Lord. O kings, receive the news. O princes, listen closely. I, even I, will sing to the Lord. I will sing a psalm to the Lord God of Israel. Lord, when you went out in Seir, when you left from the field of Edom, the earth trembled and the heavens poured dew. The clouds poured water. The mountains were shaken before the Lord Eloi, this Sinai before the Lord God of Israel. In the days of Shamgar, son of Anath, in the days of Jael, they departed the main road and traveled the byways, corrupting the way as they went. The mighty of Israel failed, they came to an end, until Deborah, whom he raised, until a mother whom he raised in Israel. They chose new gods. Then the cities of the rulers waged war. Not a shield or a spear was seen among the 40,000 in Israel. My heart is with the leaders of Israel. To those among the people who freely sacrifice, bless the Lord. You who mount upon a female donkey at midday, sitting on the seat of judgment, who conduct your life on the road, mediating along the way. Turn back and shout out every detail while drawing up water. There in that place, what is rightful to the Lord is given, spreading righteousness in Israel. Then the people of the Lord came down to the cities. Awake, awake, Deborah, awake, awake, sing a song. Arise, Barak, son of Abinoam, and lead your host of captives captive. Then the remnant came down to the mighty. The people of the Lord came down to him, to the mighty. My Ephraim rooted them out in Amalek. O Benjamin, your people were behind you. Machir came to know more about me, and from Zebulun those able to record with the pen of a scribe. And the princes in Issachar were with Deborah and Barak. So she sent Barak into the valley by foot, among the regions of Reuben. There were great resolves of heart. Why go up to sit in the midst of the sheepfold, to hear the trumpet of the angels? In the divisions of Reuben there were great searchings of heart. Gilead is beyond the Jordan, where he made his dwelling. Why did Dan remain on the ships? Asher sat down on the seashore, and he will dwell at his seaports. The people of Zebulun reproached its soul unto death, and Naphtali denounced the high places of the fields. Kings set themselves in battle array. Then the kings of Canaan waged war in Taanach, by the waters of Megiddo. They took no gift of silver. The stars of heaven were arrayed for battle. On their path they arrayed themselves to war against Sisera. The brook of Kishon swept them away, the ancient brook, the brook of Kishon. My mighty soul will trample him down. When the hooves of the horses were fettered, in earnest his mighty ones hastened. Curse Meroz, said the angel of the Lord, curse them. Cursed is everyone who dwells there, because they did not come to the help of the Lord, to the help of the Lord against the mighty. Jael is blessed among women, the wife of Heber the Kenite. Blessed is she from among the women in tents. He requested water, she gave him milk in a dish. Surpassing this, she offered butter. She stretched her left hand to the tent peg, her right hand to the workman's hammer. She drove the nail through his head with a hammer. She put the nail into his temple. He rolled down between her feet. He fell and lay between her feet. He bent over and fell. When he sat down there, he fell, departing life. The mother of Sisera peered out through the archer's window, for his chariot is not where it should be. For the feet of his chariot's horses tarry. The wise of her leading ladies answered her, and she answered to herself, Will they not find him dividing the spoil? The merciful having compassion for the head of a man. Spoils of the dyed garments for Sisera, the spoils of dyed embroidery. Embroiderer's dyes as spoils for his neck. O Lord, let all your enemies perish in the way, and those desiring him be as the coming out of his Son in power. And let the land be at peace for 40 years. Then the sons of Israel did evil before the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hands of Midian for 7 years. And the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel. The sons of Israel made dens for themselves in the mountains and caves and strongholds, away from the presence of the Midianites. So it was, whenever the sons of Israel had sown, Midianites would come up, and the Amalekites and the sons of the east would come up with them. Then they encamped against them and destroyed the fruits of the earth until they came to Gaza, and left no substance of life in the land of Israel, not even an ox or a donkey among the herds. For they came up with their livestock and their tents, and appeared just as numerous as locusts. They and their camels were without number, and they came into the land of Israel and destroyed it. And Israel was exceedingly destitute before the face of the Midianites, and the sons of Israel cried out to the Lord because of the presence of the Midianites. And the Lord sent a prophet to the sons of Israel, who said to them, Thus says the Lord God of Israel, I am he who brought you up from Egypt, and who brought you out of the house of your bondage, and I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all who oppressed you, and drove them out from before you, and gave you their land. And I said to you, I am the Lord your God, do not fear the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell. But you did not obey my voice. Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth tree in Ephrathah, which belonged to Joash, the father of Esdri, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress in order to hide from the presence of the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, The Lord is with you, mighty one of the armies. Gideon said to him, It is I, my Lord. If the Lord is with us, then why have these evils come upon us? And where are all his miracles which our fathers told us about, saying, Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has driven us out and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord turned to him and said, Go with this strength of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Indeed, I have sent you. And Gideon said to him, Be gracious with me, my Lord, for how can I save Israel? My 1,000 is weakened in Manasseh, and I am the smallest in my father's house. And the angel of the Lord said to him, The Lord will be with you, and you shall strike the Midianites as one man. Then Gideon said to him, If now I have found mercy in your sight, then you shall do everything for me today that you have told me. Do not leave here, I pray you, until I come to you, and I will bring out my offering and set it before you. And he said, I will wait until you come back. So Gideon went in and prepared a goat kid and unleavened bread from an ephah of flour. He put the meat in a basket, and he put the broth in a pot, and he brought them out to him under the terebinth tree, and approached. The angel of God said to him, Take the meat and the unleavened bread, and lay them on this rock, and pour out the broth. And he did so. Then the angel of the Lord stretched out the end of the staff that was in his hand, and touched the meat and the unleavened bread. And fire arose out of the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened bread. And the angel of the Lord departed out of his sight. Now Gideon perceived this was the angel of the Lord. So Gideon said, O Lord, my Lord, for I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face. Then the Lord said to him, Peace be with you, do not fear, you shall not die. So Gideon built an altar there to the Lord, and called it the Peace of the Lord. To this day it is still in Ephrathah of the father of Esdri. Now that same night the Lord said to him, Take your father's young bull and the second calf of 7 years old, and tear down your father's altar to Baal, and destroy the sacred grove beside it. Build an altar to the Lord your God on top of this stronghold in the proper arrangement, and take the second calf and offer a burnt sacrifice with the wood of the sacred grove which you cut down. So Gideon took 10 men from among his servants and did as the Lord had told him. But because he feared his father's household and the men of the city too much to do it by day, he did it by night. And when the men of the city arose early in the morning, the altar of Baal was torn down, and the sacred grove beside it was destroyed. And they saw the second bull being offered on the altar which had been built. And one man said to his neighbor, Who did this? Then they inquired and learned that Gideon the son of Joash had done it. And the men of the city said to Joash, Bring out your son and let him die, because he tore down the altar of Baal, and because he destroyed the sacred grove beside it. But Joash said to all the men who stood against him, Are you now going to plead for Baal? Do you want to save him? Let the one who wants to plead for Baal be put to death by morning. If he is a god, because his altar is torn down, let him plead for himself. Therefore on that day he called him Jerubbaal, saying, Let Baal plead against him, for it is his altar that is torn down. Then all the Midianites and Amalekites, the sons of the east, gathered together and encamped in the valley of Jezreel. But the Spirit of the Lord empowered Gideon, and he blew the trumpet, and the Abiezerites were terrified behind him. And he sent messengers throughout all Manasseh, and to Asher, and to Zebulun and Naphtali, and he went up to meet them. So Gideon said to God, "If you save Israel by my hand, as you said, then look, I shall put a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew on the fleece only, and it is dry on all the ground, then I shall know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you said." And it was so. And he rose early the next morning and wrung the fleece, and from the fleece dropped enough dew to fill a pan full of water. Then Gideon said to God, "Indeed, I pray, do not let your anger be aroused at me, and I will speak but once. I will yet make one more trial with the fleece. This time let it be dry on the fleece, but let there be dew over all the ground." And that night God made it so. On the fleece it was completely dry, but there was dew all over the ground. Then Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people with him, rose early and encamped at the spring of Harod. To the north of him was the camp of the Midianites, stretching from Gabaath Morah in the deep valley. And the Lord said to Gideon, "The people with you are too numerous. I dare not deliver Midian into their hand, lest otherwise Israel boast against me, saying, 'This my own hand, it saved me.' Now therefore proclaim within the hearing of the people, saying, 'Whoever is fearful and afraid, let him turn and depart at once from Mount Gilead.'" And 22,000 of the people returned, and 10,000 remained. But the Lord said to Gideon, "There are still too many people. Bring them down to the water, and there I will purge them for you. And it will be that of whomever I say to you, 'This one shall go with you,' the same shall go with you. And of whomever I say to you, 'This one shall not go with you,' the same shall not go with you." So he brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, "Everyone who laps water with his tongue, as a dog laps, you shall set apart by himself. Likewise, everyone who gets down on his knees to drink." And the number of those who lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, was 300 men. But all the rest of the people got down on their knees to drink water. Then the Lord said to Gideon, "By the 300 men who lapped I will save you, and deliver the Midianites into your hand. All the other people shall go, every man to his own place." So he took the provision of the people in their hand and their trumpets, and he sent away every man of Israel, every man to his tent. And he strengthened the 300. And the army of Midian was below him in the deep valley. On that same night the Lord said to him, "Arise, go down against the camp, for I have delivered it into your hand. But if you are afraid to go down to the camp with Purah your servant. Listen to what they shall say, and afterward your hand shall be strong, and you shall then go down into the camp." And he went down with Purah his servant to the edge of the camp of the 50. And Midian and Amalek and all the sons of the east were scattered as numerous as locusts throughout the valley, and their camels were without number, as the sands on the seashore. And Gideon came, and there was a man telling his companion a dream. He said, "Behold, I had a dream. Hear me. A cake of barley bread, rolling into the camp of Midian, came as far as a tent, and struck it so that it fell, flipped over, and collapsed." Then his companion answered and said, "This is nothing but the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. Into his hand God has delivered Midian and the entire camp." When Gideon heard the telling of this dream and its interpretation, he worshipped the Lord. He returned to the camp of Israel and said, "Arise, for the Lord has delivered the camp of Midian into our hand." Then he divided the 300 men into 3 companies and put a trumpet into every man's hand, with empty pitchers and torches inside the pitchers. And he said to them, "Watch me and do as I do. Watch. And when I come to the edge of the camp, do as I do. When I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me, then you also blow the trumpets on every side of the whole camp, and shout, 'For the Lord and for Gideon.'" So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the edge of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, and they completely roused the guards, and they blew the trumpets and broke the pitchers that were in their hands. And the 3 companies sounded the trumpets and broke the pitchers and held the torches in their left hands. In their right hands they held their trumpets to sound with, and they cried out, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." And every man stood in his place round about the camp, and the entire army of men ran and sounded a warning and fled. They sounded with 300 trumpets, and the Lord set every man's sword against his neighbor throughout the entire camp, And the army fled as far as Beth Acacia toward Zaarah, as far as the border of Abel Maholah by Tabath. And the men of Israel from Naphtali, from Asher, and from all Manasseh shouted out and pursued after the Midianites. Gideon sent messengers throughout all Mount Ephraim, saying, "Come down to meet in battle with the Midianites, and take for yourselves the watering places as far as Beth-barah and the river Jordan." And every man of Ephraim cried out, and they seized the water as far as Beth-barah and the river Jordan. And they captured Oreb and Zeeb, rulers of Midian. And they killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, and Zeeb they killed at the winepress of Zeeb. They pursued Midian, and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeeb to Gideon from the other side of the Jordan. The men of Ephraim said to Gideon, "Why did you not tell us what you were doing when you went to war with Midian?" They reprimanded him sharply. So he said to them, "What could I do in comparison with what you do now? What could I do in comparison with what you now do? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? The Lord has delivered into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeeb, and what could I do in comparison with what you do?" Their spirit toward him became calm when he spoke this word. When Gideon came to the river Jordan, he and the 300 men with him crossed over, hungry but still pursuing. Then he said to the men of Succoth, "Please give bread to feed this army of men that follow me, for they are exhausted, and I am pursuing Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian." And the leaders of Succoth said, "Is the hand of Zebah and Zalmunna now in your hand, that we should give bread to your army?" So Gideon said, "Therefore, when the Lord has delivered Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, I will then tear your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and with briar bush." From there he went up to Penuel, requesting the same in the same way. The men of Penuel answered him as the men of Succoth previously answered. And Gideon said to the men of Penuel, "When I return in peace, I will tear down this tower." Now Zebah and Zalmunna were at Karkor with their armies, about 50,000, all that remained of the entire army of foreigners. They that fell were 120,000 men who drew the sword. Then Gideon traveled the road eastward of Nobah and Jogbehah, to where they dwelt in tents. Here he smote the army, and the camp was surrendering. Zebah and Zalmunna fled, and he pursued them, capturing the 2 kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna. The last of the army was caught by surprise. And Gideon the son of Joash returned from battle, down from the battle line of Ares. And he took prisoner a young man of the men of Succoth to interrogate him. And he wrote down for Gideon the names of the leaders of Succoth and of their elders, 77 men. Then Gideon came to the rulers of Succoth and said, "Look, here are Zebah and Zalmunna, about whom you reproached me, saying, 'Is the hand of Zebah and Zalmunna now in your hand, that we should give bread to your army?'" And he seized the elders of the city with the thorns of the wilderness and with sharp thorns, and with them he flailed the men of the city. Then he tore down the tower of Penuel and killed the men of the city. And he said to Zebah and Zalmunna, "Where are the men you killed at Tabor?" And they said, "As you are, so they were in the appearance of a king's son." Then Gideon said, "They were my brothers and the sons of my mother. As the Lord lives, if you had kept them alive, I would not kill you." And he said to Jether, his firstborn, "Rise and kill them." But the youth would not draw his sword, for he was afraid, for he was yet very young. So Zebah and Zalmunna said, "You rise up and face us, for your strength is that of a man." So Gideon arose and killed Zebah and Zalmunna, and took the crescent ornaments from their camels' necks. Then the men of Israel said to Gideon, "Rule over us, both you and your son, for you have delivered us from the hand of Midian." But Gideon said to them, "I will not rule over you, nor shall my son rule over you. The Lord shall rule over you." Then Gideon said to them, "I would like to make a request of you, that each man would give me an earring from his plunder," for they had gold earrings, because they were Ishmaelites. So they said, "We will gladly give them." And he spread out his garment, and each man threw down an earring from his plunder. Now the weight of the gold earrings which he requested was 1,500 pieces of gold, besides the crescent ornaments, pendants, garments, and purple robes worn by the kings of Midian, and the chains around the necks of their camels. Then Gideon made it into an ephod and made a memorial of it in his city of Ephrathah. Hereafter Israel indulged in all types of sinful acts because of it, and to Gideon and to his house it became a thorn. Thus Midian was reduced in stature before the sons of Israel, and they lifted their heads no more. The country remained at peace for 40 years in the days of Gideon. Then Jerubbaal, the son of Joash, went and dwelt in his own house. And Gideon begot 70 sons of his own, for he had many wives. And his concubine, who was in Shechem, also bore him a son, whom he called Abimelech. Now Gideon, the son of Joash, died in his city, and was buried in the tomb of Joash his father, in Ephrathah of the Abiezerites. So it was, as soon as Gideon was dead, the sons of Israel again played the harlot with the Baals, and made a covenant for themselves with Baal, that he would be their God. Thus the sons of Israel chose to no longer remember the Lord their God, he who had delivered them from the hand of all their enemies on every side. Nor did they show mercy to the house of Jerubbaal, that is, Gideon, in accordance with all the good he accomplished for Israel. Here ends the reading for today.